But they usually go in her ear. What I know. If it says Libby, Libby, Libby on the label, you will like it, like it, like it on your. So there was a vegetable brand called Libby's. That was their commercial. See the power of advertising. I remember Campbell Soup commercials. Which one? Finger licking good? No, wait, that's somebody else. There's Libby. They're up here. Your people. She found it. It was out on the curb. Somebody had stuck it in the snow, and why not? It was preserved. Well, we invited you here tonight because Kathy and Julie are back, and we just wanted you to be part of hearing how their trip went. Any experiences you want to share? Just you've been several times now, and so we can kind of notice and like to hear about the differences of things you might experience. So just we're not expecting anything in particular. We just want to hear from you. See, but we wanted that. We just wanted it flowing out of you. Wow. So you had to do it without the anesthesia? Okay. Say anything. It's just. No. And you ended up not having to curtail because of the delays, or did you do it so that some to the next time? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. By car, by luxury car ride, right? Mm. Yeah. Well, and I'm going to guess too, some of these people who were looking forward to having a surgery just took it in stride. It wasn't that they were excited about it being delayed, but that's what happens. Can you imagine us? Things not going the way we want them to. We get pretty sideways about very little things not going our way. Right. So, right. Yeah. So we just wanted your immediate reaction to being there, and it says something when you just keep going back, because you almost have to, not you're being forced, but you're drawn back because of what you see and experience. And I hope within all of us, uh, especially those that are younger, that you will avail yourself, that you will make an opportunity to see something different than what you know, because when you see Christians that are living in a way that you would go, I don't know if I can do this, but they're joyous and happy and praising God, it does something to you. When I was a youth minister, I took kids to Mexico, and it was a much similar kind of experience for them. They got to see things they would not see. They got to experience a way of thinking that was much different than what they knew. And I had one guy who was a freshman in high school, and he was taking German, and he went to Mexico with me, and he came back and said, I'm taking Spanish, I'm going back. And he eventually went to Peru as a missionary for a number of years. And even when he was in college, he went to the Spanish church because he wanted to work on his language. And when he got to Peru, people couldn't believe that it was a second language, because he had dedicated himself to learning the language. So even something as simple as a week can impact and inspire us to see what God's doing, not for us, but around us. And that's what we hope you catch. And we look forward to a more formal presentation to the whole church as well. Anything else y'all want to add? And so when y'all are old enough in a year or two, sorry, I had to get that in. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for y'all's time. Get out of here. So to catch y'all up, y'all were gone last week. We started talking about names of God, and last week we did Yahweh, and we could talk, 2 or 3 more months about that, but we're gonna move on tonight, and this is feeling like, even if we hadn't had our little interlude there, it's already was going to be a 2 or 3 parter, so this works. So tonight we're going to begin about Elohim. And here's one of the fun things about Elohim. You don't have to read the Bible very far before you encounter it. Elohim is in the very first verse of Genesis. In the beginning, and then it says, God created. And that word there is Elohim. And it's an interesting word, because sometimes when you're reading through the Old Testament, which has about 2,500 uses of Elohim, times that it's used, sometimes Elohim is translated God, big G, and sometimes it's translated God's, little g. Same word used, but it's the words around it that tell us how it's supposed to be used. So here's what's interesting about the word Elohim. It is plural. And so there are people who really like the Trinity and go, see, it's been there all along, this plurality. But and that certainly may be part of the intent. I'm not denying that. But in Hebrew, when something was pluralized like that, it was showing significance. And so they decided to put it with a capital G in our word, God, when it's the plural Elohim, but then it's singular words around it. And when it's Elohim and plural words around it, that's when they make it little g and pluralize the word often to be gods. And so that's how they're able to differentiate the meaning, a little different than how we would do it, but in some ways similar, because we understand the difference in capital G God and a little g God. We don't equate those as equal. They just had a different way to do it. And so when I hear the word Elohim, I think about creator, right? It's the text connecting us to the creator of this world. That's Genesis 1:1. And it has this idea of being the strong one, the one present, the one who creates. Go to Isaiah 45:18. Isaiah's got a couple of good verses about connecting this idea of Elohim as creator. So remember, when we hear Lord, what are we usually thinking about? Well, that's Yahweh. And when we see God, we don't always know the background, but usually it is Elohim or some form of it. Isaiah 45:18. For this is what the Lord says, meaning Yahweh, the one who created the sky, he is the true God. Elohim, the one who formed the earth and made it. He established it. He did not create it without order. He formed it to be inhabited. I am the Lord, I have no peer. So I kind of like Isaiah 45:18 because it's kind of like just a condensed version of the first chapter of Genesis, right? He formed it, he inhabited it, he created it. He gave it order. Or go over just a few chapters to Isaiah 54. Starting in verse 5, Isaiah 54. Speaking about God, for your husband is the one who made you. The Lord of heaven's armies is his name. He is your protector, the Holy One of Israel. He is called God, Elohim, of the entire earth. So what would be important about this idea? Well, if we think back to ancient times, how did they envision the earth being ruled? Well, in multiple cultures is a pantheon of gods, of strong ones, of people, of these beings in control. But the Jewish people understood Elohim, God of the entire earth. And this is what's also interesting about Elohim. It seems to be a Hebraic, a Jewish idea. The other ancient languages around them did not have a similar word for the one creator God. And so Elohim also became known as a name for the God of Israel, right? Because it was unique even to the people who surrounded them. And so it was easy for them to look and see. But even in ancient times, they didn't claim this name just for themselves. Jeremiah 32. Jeremiah 32, verse 27. He says, I am the Lord, I am Yahweh, the God, the Elohim of all humankind. So even the ancient prophets understood Elohim didn't belong to them, but they belonged to Elohim, but also all of humankind. This is not an exclusive relationship. Let's go back to Genesis chapter 1. Creation of man, verse 26 of Genesis 1. Then God said, Elohim said, let us make humankind in our image, after our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, over the cattle and over all the earth, and over all the creatures that move on the earth. So when that verse you're familiar with, made in the image of God, it's connected to this idea of Elohim, the creator, the strong one, the one who brings order. That's the image. We think of image of, what color is my hair? He's speaking to a different kind of reality. What are we like? So it's no surprise that we can be and should be creative. That's part of the likeness of the one we were made in his image, made to look like, made to be like. So here is Elohim. It is a name for God as the creator and therefore the judge of the universe. But here's one thing I really like about Elohim, because one word for God is not enough, right? I'm not just talking about Jehovah and Elohim. Elohim gets paired over again to help us better understand who this creator God is and what he is like. So sometimes the one word's a little different form. It's still Elohim. It may be Elohe, but it's the same word. It's kind of like when you don't have to think much to take two similar words and know they're the same thing. So we're going to talk about a few of these because it helps me to understand the depth of who God is. And so we're going to jump around as far as references, but we're going to talk about different instances where Elohim is combined. There's a construct. It's a constructed image of who God is. Deuteronomy 33, verse 27. The everlasting God. That's actually Elohe Kadim. So what does everlasting tell us about God? Yeah. What does it tell us about God? He's outside of time. He's eternal. When we have the thing that we call the beginning, what do we know? Well, he was already there. He wasn't created along with us. He was the one doing the creator. He is the God of the beginning. The everlasting God is a refuge. And underneath you are his everlasting arms. I think it makes that image even more powerful. Or how about Isaiah 40, verse 28, which happens to have some of my favorite phraseology to start the verse. Isaiah 40, verse 28, starts like this. Do you not know? Have you not heard? It's kind of like, what? This is new to you? I thought everybody knew this. Isaiah says, the Lord is an eternal God. He is Elohe Kadim, God eternal. And there in 40 again, Isaiah, now already in just the last few minutes for the third time, connects the Creator of the whole earth. So here's my question. What was going on in the time of Isaiah that he was needing to hit that over and over again, right? Reminding them of who Elohim, who God is, what he does, his existence outside of what we know of as time. So let's look at some more of these constructs. And anytime you have Elohe or Elohi, there is always another word that goes with it. You do have instances where it's just Elohim, singular use. And this is not just for the Old Testament. Go to Matthew 16. Matthew 16:16. We find the phrase Ben Elohim. And what in Jewish language, in the Far East language, what does Ben signify? Son of. So you see where this is heading. Ben Elohim, what is this going to be? When Peter was asked by Jesus, that's what they say about me. What do you say? Peter answered, "You are the Christ, the Ben Elohim. You are the Son of the living God." So there it is, right there in Peter's confession about who Jesus was. And there's something about seeing in the terms of Elohim, right? It's not that we've forgotten God as creator, but for me it's a fresh way of hearing and a reminder of who Jesus was really claiming to be. Let's just stay in Matthew and go to chapter 26. And this just shows that even the other Jews understood the significance of this term. Matthew 26, verse 63. He's before the high priest. He's silent. The high priest said to him, "I charge you under oath by the living God. Tell us if you are the Christ, the Ben Elohim, the Son of God." That mattered to them. They weren't going to believe that he was the Ben Elohim, but they wanted to pin this serious charge on him, right, Clark? Yeah. Let's go to Exodus. I got you moving around tonight. Exodus 15. So Exodus 15 comes right after Exodus 14, right? What happened in Exodus 14? Well, they made their escape from Egypt. They did this little thing that we call crossing the Red Sea. And then we reached 15. And I think sometimes we skip over these. We like the story, right? But the story kind of turns into a musical. I don't know how you feel about musicals. I usually don't like them ever. On a few occasions, it'll hit me just right, and I'll like a musical. I liked Spirited, if you've watched that little Christmas musical. And I don't know why. I don't like musicals, and I don't like Will Ferrell, and it has both of them. So it doesn't make any sense. But this is the moment after the Red Sea, and Moses and the people, it says, sing this song. I will sing to the Lord, Yahweh, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and the rider he has thrown into the sea. The Lord, Yahweh, is my strength and my song. He has become my salvation. This is my God, my Elohim. So what does that tell us about Elohim? What God would want to do that? Mess with us. And I think it's important. This is not new. This is not just when Christ came to introduce that idea to us. It had been the very thing all along. God wanted to be intimate with us. He wanted to know us. He wanted us to claim him, and he claimed us. And here's his people after he saved them out of 400 years of captivity in Egypt. And they say, Yahweh is my strength and my song. He has become my salvation. He is my Elohim. I think that's instructive. It is for me. It strengthens me. And what's their response? I will praise him, my father's God, and I will exalt him. What are they saying? By saying, yes, it was the God of my father. And who are they carrying out of Egypt? Jacob, right? His bones. But he's not just that guy we heard about, but he is my Elohim. He is my creator. He is my God. He is Lord. And then we remember those fathers. Elohe Avraham. He is the God of Abraham. Go to Exodus 3:15. I just again, this is Exodus 3. This is before they've crossed the Red Sea, but this is in preparation. Exodus 3, starting verse 15. God also said to Moses, you must say this to the Israelites. The Lord, Yahweh, the Elohim of your fathers, the one who created your fathers, the Elohim of Avraham, of Abraham. He doesn't stop there, does he? The Elohim of Isaac, the Elohim of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is his name forever. This is my memorial from generation to generation. I find this significant because when we understand his time is not our timing, as if we even know what our timing should be, but it was maybe understandable that they had imagined themselves abandoned in Egypt. Clark. Excellent. And that relationship continues, not bound by time. And so for this new generation, then in just a few, what we call a few chapters from Exodus 3, when they hear this pronouncement from Moses, then by the time they cross the Red Sea, to say, God, Elohim of my fathers, yes, my Elohim. I think it's significant in what fuels them through all their ups and downs across the wilderness. Let's do one more for tonight. Elohe Halihim, the God of gods. See, just to remind us, capital G, God, little g, God. I don't think we fully, we are so ingrained to think one and one God only. We don't understand this God of gods. I quoted a psalm with this in it one time, and somebody came up to me afterwards and said, you said there were other gods. Well, I was just reading the psalm. Sorry to rock your world. But that's the way the Bible talks about it. There are powers that are little g gods, but they are not. Elohe Halihim, the God of gods. Deuteronomy 10, verse 17. For the Lord, Yahweh, your God, Elohim, is God of gods. He's the Elohim of all the Elohe. And he is Lord of lords. The great, mighty, and awesome Elohim, who is unbiased and takes no bribe. He's not being appeased. You're not paying him off. Again, because it's about personal relationship. Who justly treats the orphan and the widow. Who loves resident foreigners, giving them food and clothing. See, he's not yours. He rejoices in all coming to him and his provision for them. He loves the resident foreigners. They didn't like that. So let's end on this. Psalm 136, verse 2. Give thanks to the God of gods, for his loyal love endures. Glad you're here tonight. More Elohim next week. Anybody hear if James made it to Puerto Rico? Andy, did you hear? He leaves tomorrow? Okay.